Welcome back to another video, and today we got our Week 2 college football top 25 rankings. So it's been 2 weeks since we did our last college football video after all the season previews. We've done a lot of NFL content recently, so if you're interested in any of that, make sure you go check that out. And not only do we do football, we also do college basketball, NBA, and MLB. So if any of that interests you, make sure you go down there, subscribe if you are new, turn on the noties to make sure you don't miss whenever we upload, because we are going to be posting a lot of videos this week. We're gonna have at least 4 or 5, so make sure you go on there, subscribe, like this video if you enjoyed. Real quick, links in the descriptions. As always, X, Twitch, TikTok, Discord. Make sure you follow all those, join those. With all that being said, though, let's get right into our Week 2 top 25 rankings. So these are my personal rankings. These are not based off of any other rankings. So yeah, looking at our number 25 team, I do have Texas A&M still ranked. They're at 25 though, just barely in the poll. Yes, they lost their opener home game against Notre Dame, 23-13. And in all honesty, I don't, it was a home game. The atmosphere was absolutely electric. I do worry about their quarterback play. Connor Weigman did not look good at all. He was 12 of 13, 100 yards on the day, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. It's just not going to cut it. Running wise as a team, they averaged 3.8 yards a carry. They just really couldn't get anything going on offense. I will say the defense looks pretty solid against Notre Dame's offense, but was that so much the defense? Was it the environment? I think it was a little bit of both. So I think Texas A&M was a little bit overrated to start. I feel like now here, right at the bottom of this top 25 is where they belong. But I didn't want to drop them out completely like the AP poll did, because yes, Notre Dame was a top 10 team. So, I know they were favored, but it's a top 10 team. Losing to a top 10 team, I don't think we should overreact so much to this loss. It was a very close game for a while, too. But yeah, I mean, a little disappointing, the outcome. But they were in it for most of the game, so I didn't want to drop them out of the top 25 completely. But looking at their upcoming game, they're taking on McNeese at home. I think they should win, no problems. Now, I have them winning 45-3, and you could argue they could win by more. But I mean, just looking at the quarterback, he didn't look great in Week 1, so I don't really trust them to go out and score like 70 points or anything crazy like that. But I do expect them to win pretty handily there. Our number 24 team is going to be Georgia Tech. Now, when looking at Georgia Tech, last week's, their previous game, really not looking at that one. They beat Georgia State. Congrats, 35-12. What I'm really looking at is the Week 1 game, or the Week 0 game, I guess, technically. Talk about Florida State. I mean, they were either 10 or 11, or maybe 9 in my AP poll preseason. Now they're not even in the top 25. They lose to Georgia Tech. Yesterday they lost to Boston College. I don't know what's going on with Florida State, but this isn't about Florida State. This is about Georgia Tech. And looking at that, the Florida State game, Haynes King had a very nice game, 150 yards through the air. But really impressed me was the run game. I mean, they averaged 5.3 yards a carry against Florida State. And they just looked like the better team on the lines of scrimmage against Florida State. Against Georgia State, 5.2 yards a carry. Once again, I think Haynes... 6.6 yards a carry. This running attack has been very solid for Georgia Tech. Haynes King, 275 yards on the day, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. They're looking like a pretty good team, and I thought about ranking Boston College. I do think Georgia Tech is a little bit better. I had Georgia Tech going 3-9 in my ACC preseason preview, and now they're sitting here 2-0 inside the top 25. I didn't expect this, but here we are. Now, looking at their upcoming game at Syracuse, this is a dangerous game. I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to be surprised if they go out there and lose this one. Kyle McCord has looked very solid for Syracuse. I think they brought in, I believe, a top 10 transfer class. They bring in a lot of transfers, so I wouldn't be surprised. It's also on the road. Definitely a scary game here if I'm a Georgia Tech fan. I do have them winning 33-30. Just because that rushing attack has been so dominant so far to start out the season. I'm telling you right now, they could definitely lose this game. I wouldn't be surprised. So watch out for this game. Kicks off at 11 a.m. Yeah, Georgia Tech's only favored by 3. I think it's going to be a very close game, but I do think they'll win. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they did end up losing. Moving on to our next team, though, the number 23 team, moving up one spot, is going to be Nebraska. Still not ranked in the AP poll. I think they'll get there. Maybe after this coming week. But Dylan Raiola looked really good. Here in the game against UTEP, he didn't look like a freshman to me. He looked like a very well polished player. Now, obviously, there's still going to be some bumps in the road. He's not going to be a perfect. But, I mean, 238 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He had a very solid game. And, yeah, the defense looked really good for Nebraska. I'm really liking what Matt Rule's doing. Their upcoming game is home against Colorado. This is definitely an interesting game. Colorado didn't look great against North Dakota State. Honestly, shouldn't be this close against an FCS team. Now, I know North Dakota State is one of the better FCS teams, but still, when you have the talent that they have, you can't be doing that. So, I do think Nebraska will win. I think they're just a better team overall. They have it at home. It's going to be a packed out stadium. It's a rivalry game. Nebraska has one of the biggest fan bases in the country. I think they win 34-26. I think the defense slows Colorado down enough, and I think Colorado's defense won't be able to slow Nebraska's down enough. I think they're just the better team ultimately. I think Nebraska comes out on top 34-26. But moving on to our next team, number 22, the Clemson Tigers. They lose to Georgia 34-3. A lot of people nobody expected them to win. Let's be honest with ourselves. Nobody thought they were going to win. The spread was 14.5. They lose by 31. So, a little bit more than people expected. And honestly, a little bit more than I expected. I expected to be like, I don't know, 28-10, 28-14 maybe. I will say in the first half it was a very good game. It was only 6-0 going into the half. But I'm honestly pretty worried for Clemson here. Cade Klubnik at quarterback did not look great. 142 yards, passing yards on the day, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Really running the ball. They didn't really get much going at all on offense. I mean, just anywhere. They did struggle. I will say the defense looks solid. And with Florida State falling down, they definitely still have a chance in the ACC. I don't want to write them off yet. But I do have to drop them down a couple spots. They don't look too good against Georgia here. Now, like I said, wasn't expecting them to win, but thought it would be a little bit closer. But they got a game coming up home against App State. And App State's one of those teams where a lot of people believe that they could be the Group of 5 team that gets into the college football playoff. I think Clemson's going to win. I think it'll be closer than some people think. I have them winning 27-14. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the spread on this game's looking like. Clemson's favored by 17.5. I think it'll be closer than that just because I don't believe Clemson will be able to score that much. Because I don't really trust Cade Klubnik. But yeah. Like I said, don't write off Clemson yet. They have a pretty easy schedule. NC State is ranked. Florida State it'll still be a tough game. But when looking down the schedule, there's really not that much. I mean, Louisville is ranked in the AP poll, but all these teams are near the bottom of the top 25. So Clemson could still realistically go 11-1, and win the ACC. So yeah, don't write them off yet. I do think they beat App State though this coming week. But moving on to our number 21 team, we got the Iowa Hawkeyes, and man, I'm telling you, if their offense plays this good, I mean, they're not going to score 40 points a game. If they score 40 points per game, they're like a top 5 team. I mean, I'm being serious. They're not going to score 40 points a game, though, but if they can score over, 21 points a game and be a decent offense, they could be a sneaky team. They could be a scary team. When looking at the schedule, their only challenge is at Ohio State. I think they'll be favored in every single one of the games they play, except for the Ohio State game. till the end of the seaon. You know, Cade McNamara had a very solid day here against Illinois State. Threw for 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Now the upcoming game, it is the rivalry game against Iowa State, and this game's always a bloodbath. It's always, back and forth barn burner type game. Iowa's favored by 2.5. It's projecting out to be a low scoring game. I do think it is a very low scoring game, and I do think Iowa wins by 3. I think it'll be a close game just because I do believe Iowa State is going to be a good team. I think I have them winning like 8 games this season. But the fact that it's in Iowa, in Kinnick Stadium, stadium's going to be packed, and I do think they come out on top. I think they're just slightly better. I think defensively, they give Iowa State some problems. And also, if their offense plays as good as it did against Illinois State, they should win no problem here, if I'm being honest. So, I got Iowa at 21. Number 20 team is going to be the Kansas Jayhawks. Took care of business against Lindenwood. Jalen Daniels looked solid. Really, the whole team played very good. I mean, it is against Lindenwood, so I don't really know what you'd expect. Here, Devin Neal, absolute animal. 8 carries for 112 yards, 2 touchdowns, 14 yards per carry. That's insane work. Yeah, but their upcoming game at Illinois, this is not an easy game at all. It's going to be a night game. Kansas favored by 5. I think they'll win just because I believe they're better than Illinois. But I think it'll be a pretty close game. I have them winning 30-24 on the road, Big Ten football night game. That's a tough environment. I do think, though, they come out on top. I trust their playmakers a lot more than Illinois'. 19, we got LSU. Obviously, the story here, they lose to USC in Vegas, 27-20. Garrett Nussmeier didn't look bad. I don't really blame this loss on him. Honestly, I don't know who I blame this loss on. It's honestly just USC played better. I mean, they got the stops when they needed to. They converted when they needed to. Garrett Nussmeier threw for 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. They didn't really run the ball necessarily bad. Kyron Lacey looked really good from what we saw from him. 7 receptions, 94 yards, and a touchdown. Harold Perkins was pretty solid defensively for them. But yeah, I mean, they were the worst team in this game, in all honesty. So USC comes out on top, 27-20. Upcoming game here against Nichols, should have no problems here. I think they'll win by a very solid margin. Moving on, number 18, the Arizona Wildcats. Now, you look at this previous game, you're thinking they scored 61 points. That's good. You're also probably thinking, giving up 39 points to New Mexico, it's not a good sign. And I'd agree with both of them. 61 points is a lot of points to be scoring, no matter who you're playing against. This game didn't end until about 2:30 in the morning, Eastern time, and I watched the whole thing. Let me just say though, Tedero McMillan, I mean, talk about raising your draft stock. People are saying he's going to be a top 5 pick now. 304 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns on 10 receptions. Are you 30 yards per reception? That is just insane. I mean that's it's really the only way I can put it. Noah Fafita, 422 yards, 4 touchdowns and a pick. He looked really good. I will say I do worry about the defense. I tweeted this out when the game ended. I'm very interested to see how this team plays in Big 12 play, because if they're giving up 39 to New Mexico is nowhere near as physical as a team like Utah is. Even a team like Texas Tech, West Virginia even, Kansas State for sure. I mean, they got some tough games here. And if they're giving up 39 to New Mexico, I do think it'll get better. It is the first game still. I think against Northern Arizona, they really show out. I think the offense has another phenomenal game. I think Tedero McMillan, maybe not 300 yards, but he'll definitely have a good game again. He's not just going to disappear. So I think they'll win 70-10 here against Northern Arizona. But moving on to our number 17 team, it's going to be the Oklahoma Sooners. Now they beat Temple pretty bad, 51-3 here. And yeah, Jackson Arnold made his season debut. Looked pretty solid in doing so. 141 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 picks. They ran the ball pretty well. Taylor Tatum and Sam Franklin, 2 guys that averaged over 10 yards a carry. Jackson Arnold moving in and out of the pocket. He scrambled a bunch. And yeah, they just had a overall very solid game. So they're at 17 here, moving up 2 spots. Coming up, they got a game against Houston at home. I think they'll win, no problems there. Moving on, though. Number 16 team, Kansas State. They're moving up 2 spots as well. They beat UT Martin 41-6. Obviously, took care of business. Avery Johnson looks solid. 153 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Nothing crazy from him, but it's his first start. Gotta give him a break. DJ Giddens, however, 124 yards rushing, 9.5 yards per carry. That's something to get excited about. Dylan Edwards had 5 carries for 43 yards and a touchdown. He's the transfer from Colorado. They have a pretty dangerous running room here. If Avery Johnson is, and I think he will be very good, this Kansas State team is dangerous here in the Big 12 because the Big 12 is wide open. They got a game, though, coming up at Tulane. This is not an easy game whatsoever. Tulane's always a tough team to play. I think it'll be a very close game. I think Kansas State will pull away in mid to late third quarter. I think they win 31-20. They're favored by 10. I'm winning by 11. I think it's going to be a very close game for a while. And it's also at Tulane. This could be a trap game. They got Arizona next week. Maybe they could be looking ahead. We'll see. Avery Johnson's still very young. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if they struggle here. Number 15, though, Oklahoma State. Moving up 2 spots. They looked really good against South Dakota State. South Dakota State's probably the best FCS team there is. So this was not, just a cupcake game like some people will say. I believe they were only favored by like 8 or 10 points, something in that, range. They won by 24. They were favored by 12.5. They won by 24, though. They really just did whatever they wanted against South Dakota State. I mean, Alan Bowman looked really good. Better than I thought he would look. 267 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Ollie Gordon ran for 104 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, what do you expect? He did get 27 carries, but he's the best running back in the country, so they're gonna give him that many. They got a game though here coming up. They do get it at home against Arkansas. I would worry a little bit more if it was on the road, so I do think they'll win. I think they win 31-21. I think it's a not necessarily a low-scoring game, but just kind of an average game here. I think they win by 10 points. I think they run it down Arkansas's throat. I don't think Arkansas is good enough to stop them. I think they'll be able to do. I think Alan Bowman will do just enough, and I think they get the job done. But number 14, moving up 1 spot, is going to be the Tennessee Volunteers. Nico Iamaleava had a very good debut. They win 69-3 here against Chattanooga. I mean, you really didn't expect anything less. Chattanooga's not anything special, but man, Nico, 314 yards, 3 touchdowns in his debut. Dylan Sampson had a day, 12 carries, 124 yards, 3 touchdowns rushing. Dante Thornton Jr., never heard of the guy till a couple days ago. He had 3 receptions for 105 yards, 2 touchdowns. Squirrel White's really a non-factor in this game. Receiving-wise, I think he will eventually step it up. Brew McCoy's another name to know. This Tennessee offense is looking very good. I don't want to overreact over one game, but they looked really good. I mean, this offense looked really good. Nico's going to get better as the season goes on as well. I think Tennessee people are kind of forgetting about. I think they're going to be really, really sneaky this season. But they got a game here coming up against NC State. I believe this is a neutral site game. Um, it's the Duke's Mayo Classic, so it is a neutral site game. Tennessee's favored by 8. I honestly think NC State's a little bit overrated. I think it'll be close, like I said, with the Kansas State Tulane game. I think it'll be close for a while. I think they'll start to pull away late, though. I think Nico maybe starts out slow, but I think he'll figure things out. As this is his real first, big true game. So I think he'll start off a little slow, but I think he'll figure it out. I think he's a very talented young kid. I think he's going to be a very good player for Tennessee. So I think they win 34-24 here against NC State. But moving on, our number 13 team, that's going to be the USC Trojans. Moving up 12 spots here. They beat LSU 27-20. Talk about a team that I thought they were getting overrated. I saw them in the top 25. I'm at the bottom of mine. But I honestly didn't expect them to finish in the top 25, if I'm being honest. I think I had them going 8-4, maybe 7-5 this season. But man, Miller Moss really put on a show against USC, and the whole team did. Miller Moss, 378 passing yards and a touchdown. Woody Marks, 68 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had the game-winning touchdown. They just ran the ball. On that last drive, they really just did whatever they wanted. Receiving-wise, they got a lot of guys there. Zachariah Branch is a name to know. He's a playmaker. Kyron Hudson. Jacoby Lane caught a touchdown. They have a lot of receivers. This USC's offense is very good. Not to talk about the offense, though. I feel like the true story here is the defense. We've been saying this for a while. What happens when Lincoln Riley gets a good defense? He has a good defense now, and all of a sudden USC's a team that can compete for the Big Ten this year. With the way that I don't want to overreact. It is week 1, but they went into Vegas. They beat LSU, and I don't think anyone expected them to do that. I thought, some people thought it would be close. I didn't hear anyone picking USC outright to win this game. Looking at the schedule, it's not necessarily an easy schedule. That you got that at Michigan game here in, I believe it's week 4, because they have a bye after their Utah State game. It technically is the 3rd game on their schedule, though. They have Penn State at home. They have Notre Dame at home. They have Nebraska at home. Most of their tough games are at home. This USC team, I'm telling you, they're a sneaky team. They could sneak into the Big Ten championship game if we're not careful here. And all of a sudden, Michigan is a team that I thought would go 9-3, losing to Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. Now this USC game is not an easy game whatsoever for them. Same with Penn State. Same with Notre Dame. Notre Dame is a team that I thought would go 11-1, losing to Texas A&M. But now, since they beat A&M, there's a real world they can go 12-0. But don't sleep on this USC team. They get that game at home. I'm telling you, this team is going to be very, very good this season. I'm very high on USC. Again, I don't want to overreact to this just 1 week of football, but they looked really good. So I think they take care of business here against Utah State. I think they win 44-17. Yeah, like I said, this defense was really impressive. Number 12, I got Missouri moving up 1 spot. Took care of business against Murray State. Nothing to really talk about, I guess, here. There's not really any big things. Brady Cook threw for 218 yards. Luther Burden caught a touchdown. They win 51-0. Congrats. You beat Buffalo. I don't know you beat Murray State. I think you beat Buffalo as well. Kind of a similar game. I have them winning 59-7. Moving on, though. Number 11, Michigan. 30-10 over Fresno State. Now I'm going to rant a little bit. I'm an Ohio State fan. So, a 6-point game with 6 minutes left in the 4th at home against Fresno State. It's just not. It's not acceptable. I'm sorry. I'm moving them down. The AP poll doesn't have the. They're not going to do that. I'm going to do that. I like to move these polls. I don't like to just keep them safe. I like to move them around. Really, just go with what I'm feeling for that week. And what I'm feeling is Michigan did not look good. So I've been moving down to number 11. They people, I guess, did move him down one as well. But, like, yeah, they didn't look good. You know, they didn't start Alex Orji. I don't think anyone expected that. They start Davis Warren, who didn't look great. 15 for 25, 118 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Orji threw a touchdown and he only threw 2 passes. Donovan Edwards really just did nothing that game. 11 carries, 27 yards, 2.5 yards per carry. That's not what you want to see. I will say Colson Loveland looked good, so I guess there's that. The defense looked really good. You know, Will Johnson caught that pick 6. But yeah, if they play like this, there's no way they're beating Texas. And I don't see them turning this around in 1 week. They don't have Jim Harbaugh, so obviously that's a loss. They're already at a coaching disadvantage. I just, in all honesty, I don't think there's any way they beat Texas with the way they played last week. I think Texas gets them 24-14. I think the defense will be able to slow down Texas. I feel like it's going to be a very boring, low-scoring game. I just don't see Michigan's offense being able to do enough here against Texas. Now, it is a pretty big factor they get it at home. So that's why I think it'll be a pretty close game for a while. But I think Texas pulls away late. I'm winning 24-14. But moving on into our top 10. Number 10, I got Utah moving down one. And this isn't for any particular reason why they're moving down. Honestly, this is just because teams around them I felt deserved to jump them, so they really moved down. Michigan, I had a reason to move down. This one, I just maybe overrated them a little bit. But they beat Southern Utah 49-0. Cam Rising looks pretty healthy coming off the injury. I think they're going to be a very good team. I don't know. There's not much to talk about here for Utah. I think they'll beat Baylor pretty easily. They get this one at home. Technically, I mean, they're playing against a conference team, but it's a non-conference game because they scheduled this game before the conference realignment, so that's a little, wonky, but it is what it is. I think they win, though, 31-13. I don't think they have any problems at all. Number 9, Oregon. Moving down 6 whole spots, and I know they won, but this should not be. Same with the Michigan thing. It's a little bit more, big with this Oregon thing because they were ranked. They were the 3rd ranked team. You cannot be winning by 10 points against Idaho at home. Idaho's worse. First of all, Idaho's worse than Fresno State. I don't think anyone would disagree with me saying that. Second of all, Oregon was supposed to be miles better than Michigan. Maybe not miles better, but better than Michigan for sure. It's not like they started out slow. They scored with 8 minutes left in the first. They went up 7-0, and then they went up 14-0 7 minutes into the second. It's not like Idaho started off hot and they had to, work their way back or they just started off slow and Idaho started off hot. They were up 14-0 at halftime. Coming out of the half, Idaho gets it to 14-7. Oregon gets a field goal, making it 17-7, and then Idaho scores a touchdown in the fourth with about 10 minutes left. It's a 3-point game till about 5.5 minutes left in the game. That's just you can't do that. Now Dylan Gabriel had a good game, 380 yards, 2 touchdowns. But I mean that's just not acceptable, especially with it being at home. I mean, what are we doing? So Oregon's moving down a lot now. Can they get back up? For sure. If they go out here and blow out Boise State, I'm gonna have a hard time not moving them up because Boise State's another one of those teams similar to App State. A lot of people think they could be the 12 seed Group of 5 team to get into the playoffs. Personally, they were my pick, so I'm pretty high on Boise State. But it's hard for me to pick Oregon to blow them out just because of the way they looked. It is at home, but I think it's a close game. I think Oregon wins 33-24. Like I said, they could very well go out there and blow them out. They're favored by 19.5, but I just have a hard time picking them to do that from what I saw against Idaho. Now, I would love nothing more for them to prove me wrong, but that's what I have. I do think they'll win. Number 8, though, Miami. They really impressed. really impressed. I was already high on Miami. I was way higher on Miami than the AP poll. I had them ranked 12 last week. The AP poll had them at 19. Now the AP poll has them at 12. I have them at 8. I'm still higher on them. Going into the swamp with a transfer quarterback and winning 41-17. That is now I know Florida's not going to be an insane team whatsoever, but that environment and just because of the talent they have, coming out, week one they should play better than that. But they just laid down and let Miami run all over them, do really anything. Cam Ward threw for 385 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. He didn't even look like he was trying. Um, he looked really good, and Miami looks like the clear favorite right now to win the ACC. I had them going 11-1 in the regular season. Their only loss, I had them losing this Florida game. But when looking at the schedule, man, they're going. They got Florida State at home and at Georgia Tech. At Louisville's a tough game. That could be a trap game. But looking at the schedule, man, where's the loss? I don't see a loss right now for Miami. They could very well be entering the playoffs 13-0. Cam Ward's looking like an early Heisman favorite. That's how good they look. So, Damian Martinez was solid. Xavier Restrepo looked really good, 112 yards on 7 receptions and a touchdown. Yeah, this team just looked really good. I think they'll blow out Florida A&M. Number 7, I got Penn State not moving. Now I thought about moving them up because I expected this game to be a lot closer at West Virginia. They win 34-12. Impressive, to say the least. A lot of people talked about how explosive can this offense be, and let me tell you, they looked pretty explosive. If the offense continues at this rate, they're going to be a very good team this year. The defense looked really good. They started off a little slow. The defense was playing good the whole game. But yeah, they generated the big plays, and that was the question for a lot of people. Drew Aller, 216 yards, 3 touchdowns. Nick Singleton had 114 yards, 8.8 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Kaytron Allen didn't have a great game. But Harrison Wallace, 5 receptions, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. I've never even heard of the guy for this game. Now he's making a name for himself. So, yeah, Penn State looked really good. I think they'll do very solid against Bowling Green. I think they win 45-7. Looking at our next team, though, number 6, maybe, honestly, probably the most impressive win of week 1, going into College Station and Kyle Field and beating A&M with that environment. I believe they said it was the 4th highest attendance of any game they've ever had. Going in with a transfer quarterback and doing what they did to A&M. Yes, it was a close game, but it felt like Notre Dame was in control for the whole game, in all honesty. It was either tied or they were winning. Yeah, they just looked like the better team out there, and the fact that they went on the road and did that. Riley Leonard, nothing crazy, but 158 yards. No touchdowns, no picks. He didn't make the mistake, which I definitely thought he would, because I actually had Texas A&M winning this game. I definitely thought with him being a transfer, he is, they're lucky that he's played college football for so long, because you could really tell the experience was there. Jeremiah Love made a name for himself here. I was pretty high on him coming into the season. I think he's going to continue to be very good this season. I think people are going to start to give him recognition here. In the next couple of weeks, he had 91 yards, 6.5 yards per carry, and a touchdown against A&M. Yeah, very impressive win to say the least. I have him moving up 2 spots. I got him at 6 right now. Upcoming game against Northern Illinois. I don't see him having any problems whatsoever. I have him winning 45-10. But a number 5 team, I did think about moving Notre Dame all the way up to 4. That's how big that win is. But I really just couldn't get around it to myself because, Ole Miss just won 76-0. It's hard to just ignore that. Talking to you, Oregon and Michigan, this is how you handle a game against a team like Furman. 418 yards, 5 touchdowns in the first half against actually I don't believe that was all in the first half, but he had like 350 yards in the first half, I'm pretty sure. Maybe it wasn't all in the first half. Yeah, they went 76-0. Jackson Dart, amazing game. Trey Harris, amazing game. This Ole Miss team is going to be really good. I think they do a similar thing here against Middle Tennessee State. I'll say 70-3. Looking at our number 4 team, same thing here. I thought about Notre Dame maybe jumping them. They actually had Notre Dame jump Ole Miss in the AP poll. I thought about Notre Dame jumping both of them, but like I said, it's hard to ignore this. They went 63-0. Western Kentucky's not a terrible team whatsoever, but Alabama just dominated them. Um, I mean, 63-0. Jalen Milroe, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. They really didn't need him to do that much. Um, they dominated. Kalen DeBoer's first game, they looked like a very good team. I think against South Florida it'll be a little bit closer, but 56-6 is kind of what I'm thinking. I think, yeah, they sometimes struggle with South. I mean, they did last year, but like, I mean, they got it at home. It's a night game. I don't see them having too many problems like last year. Number 3, Texas. Again, this is how you handle a team like Fresno State, like Idaho. You just blow them out. They went 52-0, no questions asked. Quinn Ewers looked amazing as always. 260 yards, 3 touchdowns. Arch Manning got to play a little. He was 5 for 6, 95 yards and a touchdown. That was cool to see. Isaiah Bond looked solid. 5 receptions, 61 yards, and a touchdown in his first game as a Longhorn. And yeah, they got a big game here upcoming against Michigan. That should say at Michigan. You guys know it's at Michigan. It says at Michigan in the schedule. It should say at Michigan in the upcoming game. Whoops on me. You've already seen the score prediction though. I think they'll win 24-14. I have a hard time believing Michigan will be able to score enough. I do think Michigan's defense can create some turnovers. I think they'll get to Quinn Ewers. I think that environment's going to be crazy. I think it'll be a close game for a while, but I think eventually Texas gets into the end zone. I think they figure it out and they pull away late. I think they went 24-14. Our number 2 team moving down one spot from last week. It's going to be Ohio State. And I'm not going to sit here and say that they looked perfect in this game because they didn't. It was 17-3 at halftime. It was a little bit closer than it should have been, but they outscored Akron 35-3 in the second half. The defense looked really good. Jeremiah Smith looked really good in his first game. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson are looking like the best running back room in the country. As I already said, this wide receiver core looks like one of the best in the country. Again, as we already knew. And like I said, the defense looks like one of the best. Will Howard had a solid game, 228 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Don't really need him to do much more. Now, I'm going to be fair, because I had him ranked number 1 last week just because of the roster. I feel like they were the best team in the country. But now I know that they're not, and we all know who the number 1 team is. I think they'll beat Western Michigan in kind of a similar score to the Akron game. And yeah, they did struggle in the first half. Again, though, they figured it out in the second half. Teams like Michigan and Oregon did not do that. So that's kind of the difference there. I'd still to drop them down 1, though, even with them winning by 46 points. But the number 1 team, it's Georgia. It should have been Georgia from the start, and I apologize for that. I mean, they beat Clemson 34-3. I don't know what else you want them to do. Carson Beck looked amazing. The whole team defensively, Clemson literally could not do anything offensively. And this was without their starting running back. I believe Nate Frazier is their 3rd-string running back, actually. He rushed for 11 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown, 7.5 yards per carry. As a 3rd-string running back, I mean, now the receiving core didn't look too great, so I am interested to see how that plays out as the season progresses, but The defense looked good. The offense looked good. Carson Beck's going to be in the contention for the Heisman. Georgia's going to be in the contention for the national championship. And, that's why I have them ranked number one. I should have them ranked number one last week. That's my fault. I corrected myself. And they'll probably be at number one unless they lose. If they win it all, there probably is not going to be any reason for me to move them down from number one. So, upcoming game against Tennessee Tech, I'm winning 63-0. They're not going to struggle at all. It's Georgia, we know this. But yeah, that's going to do it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and comment down below what you think of my top 25, what you agree, what you disagree. Yeah, links in the description as always. X, Twitch, TikTok, Discord. Join all those, follow all those. With all that being said, though, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you guys tomorrow with our NFL Week 1 picks, along with our preseason playoff predictions on Thursday. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys tomorrow with NFL picks.